Discover KDH Collective's Leaning into Therapy podcast, an enlightening exploration of therapeutic approaches and evidence-based protocols. Join us as we delve into the vast landscape of therapeutic interventions, guided by the belief that collective intelligence surpasses individual expertise. Led by KD Holmes, a licensed professional counselor with 16 years in private practice. This series offers valuable insights, expertise, and training from a team of skilled therapists. Prepare to immerse yourself in the world of therapy, created exclusively for therapists by therapists. We are back, leaning into therapy. We are going to talk today about narcissism, which I'm really excited about. So this is something that I don't know a ton about. I am KD Holmes. I do not know. I would not say I even know a little bit about narcissism. But today I have Brynne Angelle with me, who's going to talk about narcissism. I'm really excited about this. Brynne, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Brynne Angelle. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work predominantly with families, young adults, teens, and trauma. So I wouldn't have ever said I was an expert in narcissism either, because I didn't think it was in my office that often until I started working in DBT, working in other personality disorders and trauma, and then realized, oh, I just didn't know what I was seeing because I was so used to what most people think about a narcissist being very cruel and belittling and very overt in that way. So once I started diving into personality disorders, you just can't not see it. Once you start working in trauma, you just can't not see it either in your client or the people in their lives. But I'm very, I want to say the word protective about using the language, since TikTok and the emergence of information, similar to when we were younger and we were learning about OCD and everyone had OCD. It's like once you know about it, it sticks. So I really wanted us to have some good conversations around narcissism. While I don't pretend to be an expert anywhere, but I have a lot more information than maybe the average person because I'm with it all the time, or I'm exploring it a lot more than the average person. I wanted us to have a good discussion about what it is, what it's not, and how can you really tell if this is what I'm experiencing, especially since most of us are trying to help people move through the abuse cycle. So.
Well, and I was going to say, like, it's not, I mean, I might have some clients that have traits, right? But I'm not a personality disorder expert. And I think most of my clients, when this does come up, it's their partner. It's someone they're in a relationship with who has these sort of traits. And they're trying to differentiate or work through what's happening. And yeah, so mine's more for the partner of, I guess, is my exposure to it, but I'm still curious across the board. So what is narcissism? Do you have an easy way to pick that apart? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're looking at a narcissistic feature versus someone with narcissism personality disorder, that is very important for you to know the difference of. Because I hear the statement a lot that, well, everyone's just a little narcissist, which drives me crazy because everyone is not a little narcissist. People do have these core personality features that we want you to have. You know, we want you to have a level of confidence, and not just confidence or self-esteem, but healthy confidence, right? That narcissism isn't someone who has confidence, and the difference would sound, they're more like grandiose about it and belittling of others. So the way that would sound different is healthy confidence would sound more like, I worked really hard for this job promotion, where a narcissist would sound more like, well, I was the only one for the job and everyone else is stupid. I'm just better equipped than everybody else. Sometimes it may not be that. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say, so it seems like in that one's like a secure, confident person, and they sound secure in their confidence, right? I worked really hard for this job. And the other one seems like they're stepping on someone else or belittling someone else to feel confident. Like they felt different even when you described them. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that overt. It's it like in conversations, they just might not, they kind of might blow it off. It might sound more like, yeah, I was the only one for the job, just kind of cool, collected. So they don't necessarily outright belittle anyone. It may be more reserved. It's like, yeah, I'm the only one here for that. There's no respect for the abilities of other people, if that makes
Right.
sense. Mhm.
Yeah. Because even that felt a little weird. Even though it wasn't like overtly mean to someone else, it still felt a little arrogant. That was my exact word that came up. There was like
Yeah.
arrogance.
Yeah, and it comes off arrogant because of the need for admiration. So there's like this desperation to be admired, for you to see their goodness, their importance, their significance, where other, like a person who's pretty regulated and has a confidence doesn't need your admiration. It feels good to be validated by other people, but I don't need it to feel whole.
Yes.
You know, um, there's not this sought out ambition for leadership. That a common person may be able to lead and they may be a good leader, but they don't prioritize needing to be the leader to feel significant or important. That they have a way of understanding their importance beyond that. They don't. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's more flexible. Their
Yes,
confidence is more flexible in a secure, confident person versus someone with narcissism. It's not securely defined. Yeah, and it's not flexible.
exactly. And there's this difference too, like a narcissist will exhibit entitlement, expecting certain types of treatment and that sort of thing, even almost like a self-loving. And people will always question me, well, Brynne, aren't we supposed to be self-loving? Of course. Practicing self-care and valuing oneself is important, right? And yet it doesn't disregard others while doing it. As a perinatal mental health specialist, we talk a lot about a mom's ability to care for themselves. But when I'm caring for myself, I'm not putting down my children to do so. I'm just honoring, having 5 minutes of quiet time is supportive for all of our well-being. You
Mhm.
know, where how would I explain this?
It just again sounds flexible.
It is everything is more flexible for people than it having to do with demanding others, blaming others, um, disregarding others completely.
Mhm.
So like in that self-care place, a narcissist would be more demanding of other people's prioritizing their need for this self-care or this time or that type of thing.
So
Uh,
it's the manner in which they go about
Yes,
meeting
and the
their needs.
persistence. Like, don't get me wrong, people can be angry sometimes and be a bit demanding or put people down. They might label them stupid or put belittle people in a moment when they're feeling angry or embarrassed or that type of thing. But the persistence to which the common disregard for people, um, how commonplace it is to put their needs over others and demand that that is the way that it's supposed to go. Um,
Mm.
and that inflexibility that you talk about, like it, so much of the person relies on other people showing significance and valuing and understanding them, that there can be no regard for you. So it's so inflexible that way.
Yeah, yeah. This makes sense. And it's very self-focused, very self-focused.
Mhm. It
So
is.
it's
It is. And when you are treating someone that way, that you will start to sort that out, but immediately you might have someone who is very, we call it collapsed, but crying, very depressed. You may have someone coming into your office very anxious or depressed, when in fact they may be in a collapse because the world is not showing them how important they are, and they haven't yet. So you see this in big life transition moments for them in particular, when they haven't yet restructured how they're important in the different roles in their life with the different people in their life, and that type of thing.
So basically, they stay regulated by using others
Yes.
to continue to reinforce them. And if they don't have people to regulate them, they will collapse. They will emotionally like go into, I guess, like a shutdown sort of response.
Yes.
Could be hyperarousal, maybe either way. Okay.
Both and yeah.
Okay.
And then it's not always obvious, like I explained, like what we call covert versus overt. A covert narcissist might fish for compliments, saying things like kind of belittling themselves a little bit. I'm so useless. No one notices me, just to elicit that praise. Where it's a little more passive aggressive, but it's still that like victim playing to pull you, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Would this be covert narcissism? It's covert. Yeah. Overts. Okay. I got it. Got it in my head. I had to think about that for a second. But covert, would someone who's constantly a victim and sort of in that mindset of like the world keeps doing me wrong, would that be covert narcissism?
Could be, not always. So this is
Okay.
where people say we're all a little narcissist, because we might distribute features of narcissism, but that person may not be diagnosed with a narcissistic personality disorder. I would start talking with this person about moving them from that drama triangle of seeing themselves as a victim and constantly needing to be rescued. And then as you start to move them through that, how extensive that need for importance filters throughout their life will give you more understanding of, am I dealing with narcissism, or was this just a moment where this person was really stuck in that kind of fight, flight, reaching. So this is why I say you want a skilled professional to determine if someone is a narcissist. Not just everyone off the street going, like listening to social media and going, okay, that girl is definitely a narcissist, but understanding I don't like their behavior because it's either disrespecting other people, only like all of our time is around their energy or making them feel better, almost like an energy vampire.
Yeah.
There's a, and a selfishness is also not a synonym for narcissism. So sometimes we can be a little selfish without being grandiose or lack empathy.
Oh, it's the grandiose that has to go with it, and the lack of empathy, because somebody could be selfish, self-consumed, and still have empathy.
Yes.
I get it. I get it now, and not be grandiose.
Yes, it's like a one-off. It's like my husband really wants Pizza Village, and I'm like, no, I really want Mexican tonight, and like we're going out Mexican because I've been craving that queso dip for like a solid week. We're gonna go, and I know you love Pizza Village, and we can go to Pizza Village like next week, but I really want to go. I'm being selfish because I really want the queso, but like that's a one-off. In general, there's not this you have to do it my way. In fact, generally it's I don't really care. What do you want? Right. So you really want to be careful, because a selfish act might be this one-off, while narcissism is a consistent pattern.
Yeah, but even the covert narcissists, it gets super complicated. Okay, so let me say this. Personality disorders, maybe it's not covert narcissism, but in the personality realm, you get these like chronic self-focused individuals, right? Who maybe aren't grandiose. And there might be other reasons why they're not narcissists, right? But they definitely have a personality disorder, which I want to say right now, I don't have a judgment about personality disorders. A lot of times when I talk about them in courses, people get like really offended. Therapists, like, we don't want to tell our clients. And I'm like, I would want to know whatever people thought I had. I think that would be really helpful as a client. I don't have a judgment about them. I think if it's useful data, it's useful data. So with
Right.
that being said, if a client has some of these features, it might not be narcissism, even covert narcissism. It could be another personality disorder.
Yes. Yeah, you can be looking at a lot of different things, especially, okay, so whether you are a narcissist or you have any features of personality disorders, we typically honor trauma, whether that's generational affective trauma, whether that's right. So, and I tend to be looking at this fight or flight response. Even in that collapse, like in my trauma work, I've done a lot of work with people who meet certain criteria of different personality disorders. And until we get to that trauma work, it's just getting people in to do the work, because shame tolerance is incredibly difficult. And that comes from like having no identity and that loneliness, pain, and working through the trauma. So this is why it's also consistent and persistent, because I don't want to get too much into loops and things that we're talking about this morning. But you want to have someone who understands this. Now, most clinicians want to work with people recovering from the abuse, but the truth is I also want people to understand what narcissism is, because you don't always have choice of the people who come into your office. And I believe that everyone has the right to treatment. But as a therapist, you have a right to determine what kind of treatment you want to provide. So if you understand this is what someone is struggling with, then I want them to be with the right therapist who can help them get to where they need to be. So I do want to be clear, like consistent and persistent patterns of the grandiosity, the lack of empathy, this entitlement, manipulative behaviors, that really fragile self-esteem that you don't usually see, but that is a criteria for them. This needing aspiration, and a lot of interpersonal challenges. They struggle with people in general, have a hard time making friends, have a hard time keeping them, have a hard time in working relationships, have a hard time with authority. You see that throughout.
Across the board, right? So
Across the board.
It has to, it's almost like that. What is that? In all DSM diagnosis, it's like there's this little saying, but basically it has to be causing them distress. So it has to be impacting a lot of areas of their life, not just one relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And then when you explore these different relationships and people will commonly know the term love bombing. And that could be in the friend realm, in the relationship realm, that again goes with that drama triangle where I'm constantly trying to do this honeymoon phase of a relationship. Some people go even to the extent of creating moments like, okay, I know they frequently go to this coffee shop. I've never been to this coffee shop. I don't even really like coffee, but I'm going to show up to this coffee shop to create a situation of meeting them, to like force this relational dynamic. And that is all at in the effort to like resist this fragile self-esteem and connect to other people, because I need this admiration.
I get it. But so it's self-focused. This is the part that I think gets confusing for the partner narcissist, right? Because they think those moments are genuine connection.
Yes.
And it's not. It's a self-focused, I want to say artificial. They're doing their best. They're trying to connect, but the only way they connect is if they're on top. If somebody is idealizing them in some sort of way is what it seems like. And so it's not real connection, but the partner often feels like it is. I don't know what that is, but that's something. I see that in my office a lot.
If it's not authentic, right? Like because there's a difference. If I just show up to this coffee shop because I like coffee, or I just like the atmosphere, maybe I'm not a coffee person, but I'm a tea person.
Yeah.
And I like the ambiance, and I'm just here and I meet you, but we're at the same place. There's an authenticity of we like the same things. We have a similar vibe, where if I'm creating that, I am hijacking your ability to trust what you know about me and the situation. Subconsciously, you don't realize that's what's going on. That's why it's like, but we have these commonalities. They like dogs and they enjoy coffee. And then all of a sudden now they hate my dog and they don't want to go to coffee. And now we're having to go watch football and lock my dog in a crate because they really don't like those things, and the longer you're in that type of relationship, you have to forfeit so much on your own self, your own feelings, and your own time that it becomes really stressful. You lose yourself in it. You stop knowing who you are. You stop knowing what you enjoy. You stop knowing how to feel. And then sometimes people get in their own fight or flight responses, and they might do that in different ways, right? But to kind of understand the persistence of entitlement, to go back to our question about what is narcissism versus what it is not, these one-offs where people are selfish, or they want their way, right? These one-offs where people might be, how do I say it? Like self-confident.
Well, and people
Or
can
having an ambition. Like having an ambition is not the same as needing leadership to be significant. Being self-loving is not the same as entitled. Being selfish sometimes is not the same as persistently needing your needs met above all else. Being malicious, right? Like I'm a parent and I'm not always kind. Okay. Sometimes I get angry and I'm like, and that is not kind and it's malicious because it comes from an angry response. Doing that doesn't make me a narcissist. It means I have to own it. My ability to say, you know what, Mom was angry earlier and I apologize for the way I did that. I'm also upset that we keep getting in this same experience. What am I going to do differently moving forward? That taking ownership doesn't happen. Accountability.
Well, and Brynne, I think it's an important thing that you're saying right now that we need to point out. So that would be a healthy response. A narcissistic response would be what?
So the reason I know, like if I yell at my kid does something back that immediately tells me, shit, I fucked up. Right?
But what would a narcissist think?
They wouldn't. You are wrong. So if my kid yells back at me, he's like, you're mean. Because that's what my kids will say. If I'm yelling, they're like, you're being mean. No, I'm not. You're not doing what I asked you to do. You're wrong. They might even ignore. So like, I don't know, my kids constantly like, I don't know but most parents will relate to this. They might pick off my plate. And so they're used to me like sharing food and different things like that. And if one of them asks if they can have something on my plate, and if I say no, because I really like that thing, that's going to be weird to them. And they're going to say like, one of them might do this, right? Like, what? Another one might be like, well, that's mean. And another one might keep trying to pick at it. Either way, if I'm being selfish in a moment because I really like my mint chocolate chip ice cream, I'm gonna be like, look, Mom normally lets you share my food, but this is my mint chocolate ice cream and I'm not sharing today. Where a narcissist would sound more like this. What are you doing? I said no. Or they might be ugly to you all day in a passive aggressive way, not help you. Oh, you touched my ice cream earlier, so I'm not helping you get dressed. They're going to use that against you later as a weapon to stay in contempt.
Got it. Yeah.
So that moment's going to be used against you. A very overt narcissist would say things like, I said no. What are you looking at? Are you stupid? Where something more covert would be like, and that has to be persistent. I can have a one-off where I'm like, ugh, I said, stop.
Oh,
But the persistence at which someone does those things and is
no,
ugly, and your feelings can't, like, your kid is not allowed to desire this delicious ice cream.
well, and I think the big thing from what you're saying, it's like it's persistence, and they have to be lack empathy and be there was a grandiose. So some people have these types of responses, but they have empathy and they're able to bounce back. So even though it's persistent, they have other moments where they're empathetic to their kids. And so I think the differentiating, at least when you're talking, I'm like, it's all of those things together.
Right. Yes.
Um,
Because if I don't have a self-esteem,
mhm.
then I have to be critical and cruel or stonewall you
Yes.
to have power. If I
Yes.
have a self-esteem and I understand my authority and my power, I don't have to demand it from you. I just know it's here.
Correct.
So I know this is my ice cream and it's delicious. And I know there's plenty more that can go around. But even if it's the last scoop and I really want it, I don't have to share it.
Mhm.
But like, I don't have to make you feel awful or belittled
Mhm.
because I want this ice cream. I might be being selfish in a moment, but I don't always have to share.
Correct.
So yes, it is that persistence that I can't say enough about the fragile self-esteem, because that's the piece that's missed the most. People just think that they're super confident, and because that is what is spewed out there.
Mhm.
Because what they're missing is other people have to feel so small so I can feel big, not just because I feel empowered. I
Right.
have to feel bigger than you to feel important.
Wow. Okay. So I think that answers most of my questions. What is the difference with the overt versus covert? Because I wasn't clear on that. I got the covert because it's kind of hidden. Seems like it's
Yeah.
more hidden narcissism, but what would be like overt? Overt's just more. Give me.
Most those are the ones that people are like, you have a narcissist when, and if you go on any social media and they're like, this is what a narcissist sounds like, that's what you see. It's the usually those pictured portrayals of angry person in an office setting, constantly having arguments with people. That's where they're like, oh, they have a sense of entitlement. Um, this is where later we'll talk in other conversations about teenagers and how an entitled teen is not a narcissist make. Okay. So, right.
Oh,
But,
teenager. Yeah.
but it's persistent. Most people won't like the very overt narcissist. They find them rude, angry, entitled. Like those are the words, manipulative, like they're trying to use me, are common things that people will say. And they see it. Um,
Overt people like.
they tend to be more likable in the like communal situation. They might be even more communal, is a word that we use to differentiate some of the different types. Even like a vulnerable narcissist, someone who feels deeply hurt by like those minor slights, but they harbor the grudge.
Yeah.
Um, and seeks constant like that client that seeks constant reassurance, but they hold that grudge for something that's very small. That's being vulnerable, but like the underpinning is like, you need to hurt because you hurt me. And
Well,
I need
they're
reassurance.
insatiable.
I need the reassurance that they're wrong and I'm right. That's that
But Brynne,
inflexibility. Yeah.
at this point, I'm like, okay, borderline versus, because there I'm like, borderline versus narcissism. Which would that be? I
The,
mean,
the persistence, and sometimes they may overlap, but because your borderline could be in a flight response and have a narcissistic moment, but is this the persistent pattern? And this is why you may not know it for a while when you're working with a client, because you have to, as a clinician, you have to stop projecting your own love and connection need onto other people.
mhm.
Meaning, I have to stop pretending everyone is so nice and loving, and really stop assuming what their thought or their internal perception is, and really stop to assess and be curious.
Mhm.
well, why is that so hard for you? You seem to really be hurting here about this. And I don't want to minimize that for you, but we've been talking about this for the last 3 weeks and you're still hurt by this. What is going on? And then something will come out about, I need them to know this hurt me. I need to know that it's okay that I'm this upset and I'm this angry. And I have to say, it doesn't make sense to be angry for 3 weeks because
Right.
someone left us, because the trash is smelly, whatever type of thing, or because they wore a perfume that you didn't like.
I do wonder about some of those severe borderline cases, if it's actually more this. The more we talk about it, I'm like,
It could be.
yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense.
It gets misdiagnosed the most in women. Most people know the narcissistic male because it's very overt. Because as a masculine energy, young boys are grown to be able to express anger and to be verbal about it and to be a position of power and authority, like in a family system. So that's why it's more understood that way and why it's more known. Women, as a communal being, we have more attunement. We tend to shift more. We tend to be allowed to shift more, to appear more loving and to have the interests of others. They appear to have more empathy than they actually do in a moment.
This is really good stuff, man. It's
Yeah,
got
and again, my own experience with it is it's trauma. And so, like, would there not be a narcissist if no one had trust? Sure, but like, maybe, I don't know.
well, and again, I mean, this is where variations in personality and like when we pathologize everything, like, yeah, maybe there would be, but I wonder if some of these people just have more of a biological predisposition for dominance. Like if we were in the animal world, would we be the lead dog biting, I don't know.
Yeah, like kill your own. No, for your.
I mean, it's true. Like, I don't know. We're not animals. We can think, but we are animals, right? I
Right.
mean,
No, but again, I cannot say enough what you pointed out about the persistence and the consistency of the behaviors and the patterns and the features versus these one-offs. If you're in a marriage or if you're in a partnered relationship and your partner is being contemptuous and like entitled and stuff, and they're criticizing you and they're like ignoring you, you're going to feel some kind of way and y'all are going to be having to work on your relationship. Even if that's happening, even if that happens in a moment, you're at minimum having a discussion.
right.
Unless they're just so awesome all the time and you're like, oh, let them have the day, or let them have the moment, right? But you're generally like, no, like you need to, even my own husband will be like, Brynne, you just asked me for feedback. I gave you feedback and then you had something to say about the feedback. I'm like, oh, yeah.
I did. But I think it's a fair point that like in relationships, if it's an emotional response, like I'm really angry about something and I behave this way, but once I calm down, I'm empathetic and not grandiose, then it's something else, right? But if it's persistence, that persistence thing actually makes more sense than anything else. And if it happens across several areas,
This, I don't know if you remember, but there was this big like surge across social media about like the power of I'm sorry, and just saying I'm sorry doesn't work anymore because of these experiences where people are saying I'm sorry, but there's like no understanding of what you're going to do, no understanding of taking ownership and what you're going to do to like for this not to happen again. Where whether it's in a family system, if it's in a married or dating relationship, it's like, how are we going to shift this moving forward? And it makes me think of just my family. And we have, my oldest son came up with this idea because we're trying to shift like how we're being more kind to each other and stop this like stuff. And so we all have these shapes and we can lose a shape by being unkind or not doing what we need to do and all those things. And he gets to be in charge of me and dad. So like if if I'm just like rah at him, then he gets to like erase that square. But I have the opportunity to earn it back by being more of who I am more of the time. So it's not this like praise system for being chronically good. It allows someone to be flexible. Like, and I can have these one-offs and lose my square, but I earn it back because I'm more chronically loving than I am angry, right? And he can do the same. So these places of flexibility, if you find people are more flexible with their feelings in general, like if I can be angry but then take ownership and I'm generally more loving, if I can be selfish but generally more giving, and lean on your spirituality, whatever that may be for you in Buddhist philosophy or in Christianity, it tends to be this area. Leaning on that really helps people too to find that flexibility and that balance. But I'm going to go on a tangent, Keisha, because even in the spiritual world, people have come to me where like authoritative type of experiences have crushed even the flexibility in the spiritual world,
Yes.
So, and I'm like, ooh, now that has a flavor for like, I'm the power and you're the submissive, where even in a functional family, you do have to have an authority as a parent, but
there needs to be a check. There has to be some flexibility that it can be checked. That's
you have to have ownership that you are also an
fallible.
imperfect human being.
Yes.
And that sometimes you are also wrong, that your kid isn't always the problem.
Correct. Well, and I think this whole thing is about creating that flexibility. And when you don't see flexibility, it might be a personality disorder. The other thing you started to talk about that I want to point out is that you talked about the apologies and like sometimes in narcissism, there's an I'm sorry, but there's no follow through with change, right?
And sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes like, I'm sorry you're so sensitive.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's even an apology with a belittling, right? Like,
Yes.
and it's not an actual apology. There's no accountability. And sometimes it is just very passive aggressive or just very passive of I'm sorry. With the internal part, that is a curious thing for me as a therapist. Like when you say I'm sorry, what are you thinking beyond that? And then I don't want to, there's a difference between like a charitable person who is just humble and does that, and then someone who has like those accolades have to be known. When we're talking about there's a type of narcissist that we can call communal. Like, but everyone likes them, and she does so many things around, or they do so many things around the community. Like, okay, how many people know that they do these things, and how much are we talking about how good they are, how caring they are? Do we have to keep reinforcing that, or is there just a doing of that?
Right.
Because if you do something charitable, or when you share some beautiful information with me, Keisha, I'm like, God, she's so smart and she thinks about things in this cool, intricate way. And like, you're going to take that, but I don't have to repeat that to you over and over and over and over. And you're not coming to me going, look what I did. And so I have to keep going, oh, look how amazing you are and how intelligent you are and how blah, 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 like there's the need and the desperation for that
constant
reassurance.
Again, Brynne, I'm like I'm thinking borderline personality disorder, where I in my office would have thought that constant need for reassurance was more like indicative of borderline personality disorder for whatever reason.
Need is different, but the need is different. So my borderline clients have a need for love and connection. My narcissists have a need for importance.
Okay.
And significance. And it's very different. Like I want the relationship, and I don't want you to leave because I feel alone. But there's a place of like, my narcissist is going to be more like, I'm angry that you're going pursue other things outside of this relationship with me.
Oh yeah.
Where like I have this separation. It looks like separation anxiety either way. And it looks like an abandonment fear either way. But the need, and then the internal discussions that like we have in this office sound different. That's why curiosity as a therapist and not projecting your own self onto how they're thinking about this moment, like your assessment of that is really important.
It's very interesting. I'm really glad. Yeah, I know y'all are doing a course on this, and I'm really glad about that because I have so much to learn. Even this one conversation, I'm like, it's got me thinking. So, any last thoughts before we close up for today?
It's not as simple as everyone can be kind of a little narcissist. And I don't want people to feel like they're bad if they ever start to go like, oh, I notice these things in me. The awareness is really important, and the willingness to shift will determine if you have connections in your life or not. If you are abusive or not will depend on whether or not you can do that. And I also like some of your clients are going to want to stay in their relationships with people, and they have the right to determine that. And especially if they're in relationships with some more of these covert types, it's easier to stay in those dynamics, and they may feel very loved, and that may be the right partner for them. It's not your job to tell people to move on from a relationship with a narcissist or not. That's their right to self-determination. But you can, again, we're going to educate you on what to understand and how this may impact your client. So when they come to you in different experiences, or how they can continuously set up boundaries or have conversations. And I've had some really beautiful sessions with people in like a coupled appointment to help one of my clients, for her to recognize that's actually abusive. And you don't abuse this person on repeat. Was really helpful. So like, don't be afraid. You and I say this all the time, because don't be afraid to confront your client. You don't have to call them a narcissist unless you do the assessment. Like, I don't ever tell my client you have NPD unless I've done the psychological assessment. This is what I think I'm dealing with. We should see a psychiatrist and have this assessed the same as I would for autism, the same as I would for ADHD and all the other diagnostics. Like, I'm not assessing those types of things and going, that's what you are. But I am confronting someone if their behavior is abusive. I am letting someone know if they are experiencing abusive behaviors. You know, if that makes sense.
Well, and I have similar rules in here. Like I'll confront people on abuse. I'm warm and sweet about it, but no matter that, ultimately I'm like, I can't get behind that. And then if I think they have a personality disorder, and I think they need to know about it, yes, I would have them truly diagnosed. Sometimes I've said maybe you should look into these two, or sometimes people will say, am I bipolar? I'm like, no, maybe it's borderline, just to help them out, like in the navigating of it. But for me, it's just like, this is my thoughts. I don't know if I'm right or not. I'm just giving them to my clients so they can take hold of their own mental health and look it up themselves. I feel like when people own it, they are so much more involved in the therapeutic process. And not that I want them researching compulsively, but I live by similar principles in here. And I don't think it's harmful to say it. We're just talking, and we're just trying to guide them towards whatever their goal is in therapy, And if it's helpful for them to know this stuff, yeah, I like this.
Yeah, and to work with personality disorders, I mean, you have to have a backbone as a therapist, because like they're going to challenge you. Like if if someone has lived in a fight response for a long time, and they need you to see their perspective, and if you trigger a fight response because you're calling them out and you're confronting them, You have to be able to understand what's going on and stay with that. And if that's not what you want to do, if you see or notice that in your office, then I want you to know where to go. You know what I mean? Not everybody has to work with people even recovering from narcissistic abuse. That may not be something that you can do. That may be your boundary. Maybe you live through it and you don't want to work through it. Maybe that's just like, I don't want to do that work. But if it comes in your office, you have to know where to go or what to do with it. So informing people has become a passion of mine because it drives me crazy if I go to like a function and someone's like, my so-and-so is such a narcissist. And I'm like, if that's true, I don't know that you want to just be doing that. Maybe you do, I don't know. But like, it's the same as when I would go into social settings and someone be like, God, I'm so OCD. And I'm like, oh, really? Tell me about it. And I'm like, you're a little particular, but particular does not OCD make.
Yes.
Same as you're being a little entitled. A little entitled does not make a narcissist.
Correct. Well, I love that. I hope this helps people understand a little bit more about what narcissism is and what it's not.
Yeah.
I think it is so misunderstood. I think you're 100% right. I'm really excited about the course for this reason. Yeah. I thought I understood it a little better, but I didn't until we talked. And now I got even more.
Well, and I think a lot of us, at least the other clinicians that I've ever talked to who've been in this realm, like we got here because we were like, this is not that, but what is this? In a like loving, compassionate way of this person is here to see me and wants to work through this. Or like my client would talk about things and I'm like, okay, I want to understand what this person is going through. What is that? Right. And that's how you get more into an understanding. And I'm just the type of clinician, like I move away. The diagnosis just informs me of what characteristics I'm looking at. And then I look at that from like a trauma lens and a very strategic intervention type of way. So I'm like, what need is this meeting? And is this a trauma response? And then how are we shifting that through skills or deep brain?
Well, and it's interesting you say that because I feel like the diagnosis informs what I'm looking for. Like if I think someone has a diagnosis, I start asking around the diagnosis, which gives me more information about the individual. I'm either right or I'm wrong, but either way, I have more information and then I know where to go from there to help them better. I mean, it does. It just provides like a map of what might be in that vicinity. I do
Yeah.
think narcissism's one of those things that I just didn't even think what could be there.
Yeah, and the same rules for any other diagnosis apply. Like you can't even begin to explore it or know if that's what you're dealing with if you have substance on board.
Oh,
Because
good
you need,
call.
or if there's like another major medical thing going on, if you have a TBI or, any of that stuff. And there can be some psychosis present for some people, but generally that's not what you may see in like your outpatient office. So
I love that. Thank you, Brynne. This was really informative. I'm excited.
yay.
Bye.
Bye.